Welcome back to Rick's Scale Model Fix and part 7 of Kinetic's 1/48 scale Harrier Gr3 build. In the last episode we saw the decals being added to the airframe. In the meantime it's had chance for the Johnson's Clear gloss coat to dry and seal the decals in, and just off camera I've started applying the wash. So to this I always use Flory Model's Dark Dirt Wash. It's given a good shake to get the particles in a good suspension, and it's been added with a paintbrush just to the panel lines on the wing section. This has been applied just off camera and allowed probably an hour to dry, and the port wing has already had the wash removed. So to remove the wash, I just in the first instance use a dry cotton bud and just rub across the panel detail, or the detail that you want the wash to stay in, like so. And because it's on a gloss surface, the cotton bud will just remove the excess, like so. Then just a damp piece of kitchen paper, and again just very lightly, not pressing down, just working over the surface of the model, and this is just to remove any stains that the wash has left behind, to get a nice consistent look to the panel lines. If you do get any stubborn areas, such as in here where you've just got a bit of the wash hiding in the sort of joint between the outrigger and the aileron, if you just tease the end of the cotton bud out before you wet it, squeeze a lot of the water out there, it's just so it's flat, you can then just get in there and give that a quick rub just to remove the excess areas that are hard to get to. So it's just a question of methodically working around the detail, just taking care not to ping the etch off as we go near the wing fences. It's easy to catch in the cotton bud, so we're just always now being careful of what we're doing, because we've got to the stage of the build where we could start interfering with the final look and finish of the model, and that's something that we don't really want to do. We don't want to start having to go back and touch paintwork up, etc. So I'm just rubbing gently where I've applied the wash, just to remove it. I work in sections, so this is the upper surface section done. Any areas where the wash has come completely out, you can always add a little bit more when we get some more wash out. A little bit of stubborn area there, just in there. So it looks like I've removed a bit of the wash from that panel line, a bit too much there, so we'll come back to that. And then just finally finishing off with these just towards the tail. And we've hopefully got a nice consistent look to the panel lines that's not too harsh as a black would be. So with a Flory wash it's a dark brown colour, and it seems to work better with the panel lines. So we're going to add some more wash now. So we're going to shake the bottle up, and we're just going to decant some into a clean dish. So I try to avoid, wherever possible, just putting the brush in the bottle. If you contaminate the wash with anything, it'll clump together and be quite difficult to use. So we're just going to wash the brush. This is the same brush I used for adding the decals, and there's no dark art to adding this wash. It's just literally painting along the panel lines. The more you put on, the darker the wash will dry. The lighter the lighter it is when you put it on, the lighter the wash will be when it dries. So it really is quite straightforward. And with it being water based, if you do make a mess or you're not happy with the results, you can just wash it off. So we're just working around the rear of the airframe now. And just covering up this panel detail, bringing out the rivets and all the little hatches and any areas that we feel. So hopefully the camera can pick that up. So I'm just putting quite a heavy application in to any of the vents. Like I said, the more you put on, the darker it dries. So we'll just finish. And then, as you can probably see from there, I've already now added the heat shield. That's that area done. Okay, and then we're going to repeat on the other side. So again, just across the panels. It's important that you seal the decals when you're using a wash, just to make sure, more than anything, that the wash doesn't creep under the carrier film. If it creeps under the carrier film of the decal that you've applied, if it's not been sealed in, you're not going to be able to remove the wash from around the decal very easily. You could also run the risk of getting it trapped under there permanently, and it's not going to be looking too attractive on the finished model. So you don't have to be neat, just slopping it on. Still working just a section at a time. And all the rivets. There we go. I did remove a little bit too much wash from these upper surface panels. Probably not as deep as the rest of the kit, but due to the slight sanding we had to do when we joined the wing, so I'll just make sure that that's got a good helping on that. So making sure I've not missed anything. So like I said, just in the vents and everything, just pooling it up so that it gives it a darker look. Make those vents look quite realistic once we come to remove it. Making sure we've got everywhere. I think that's there. May as well do around the bottom as well while we're at it. We'll stop, that's a good place to stop. So that will just set aside to dry. Once I've got the wash on the airframe, I'm going to be wanting to add the pylons to the model so that I can get the decals on here and get it varnished at the same time. So I'm just going to add the wash to these now while we're there. I've still not decided if I'm going to put any stores on these pylons, so we will just put a bit of a wash over the etched part. It will help bring the detail out so that we can see that. So we've done a little bit more work and we've added the nozzles and the pylon to one side, and we're just going to do the same to the other. So to add these, we're going to use Tamiya white top. The nozzles fit without any of the mechanism described in the instruction booklet, so we're just going to put some Tamiya white top in the forward nozzle recess. And we're just going to slip this in. Like so. And then we're going to line it up looking at the, so it's the third one down. There we go. So using the white top glue allows us a little bit of extra wiggle room because it dries a little bit slower than quickset. So we're just going to repeat the same for the rear nozzle. And push it into place. Hope that everything's lined up. The flaps have been dry fitted and they're a good fit, so I'll just take those out because it'll make life a little bit easier getting to the inboard pylons later on. So we're just going to add the outboard pylon to the wing, and we're going to use the cutting mat to help us align this so that it's vertical. And we're just going to carefully run some quickset up the inboard side. So we do it up the inboard side so it can't be seen if it does mark the paint, but it shouldn't do if it's just left alone. And then again we're just going to check that everything's square. So the to-do list is diminishing rapidly. We've still got a little bit of work to do. So we've got the inboard pylons with the drop tanks to attach and decal. Just to break it up, I've used the Head-Tacker lacquer on the centre of this one, just to try and break the monotone green colour up, so we'll see how that develops. And also I've started work on the outriggers, so they were masked up using Tamiya tape and then painted, and then it just needs the tyre section and the forks painting on that one. So that's all still to come. So we're back at the cutting mat, and I'm just giving the 100-gallon drop tanks a coat of Johnson's clear, and these will just be set to one side to dry, and then we can get the decals on these and the pylons. I added a centre section with the Head-Tacker lacquer RAF dark green on this one, so it'll be interesting to see if it does break the pattern up. The pylons have decals as well, so we're just going to get a bit of gloss on the areas needed on those as well. So work's been continuing on the outriggers, but just while we wait for the pylons and tanks to dry. And I found this in my stash of masks and stuff. So as you can see, it's intended for the Harrier T2, T4 and T8, but it actually has got the masks for the centre of the outrigger wheels, which are tiny. So outriggers have been masked up, they've had the tyres now painted, and it's just going to be a case of masking the fork for the wheel and painting that Humbrol 196. So we've done a bit more work to the Harrier's undercarriage, and we've got this added to the model. Quite straightforward. Now usually undercarriage main gear doors are closed on the ground, but they can be opened by the maintenance crew, and as you'll see later on in the build, I've got something a little bit special planned for this one, so that all will become clear later. But for every photo of Harriers that I've looked through, I can find some with the undercarriage doors open, so I'm not too fussed about closing those up. The Humbrol 196 looks quite good under a Flory Models dark dirt wash, and the outriggers have been added. So all that's needed now are the decals on those parts. The drop tanks have been finished, so they can be added. It is important with Harrier drop tanks, or RAF drop tanks of this vintage, that the stencil data does go on both sides, the same side of the tank, and it's not handed left or right. The air brake's been painted up, and that's now waiting to be assembled and added to the model, and along with the aircraft's tailplanes. So again, angles of Harrier tailplanes, there's a definite anhedral, and so make sure you get your angles correct with those. So there's still plenty to come. We're getting there. It's just waiting for the decals now on these parts, so I shall add those off camera. That'll draw a conclusion to this stage of the build. So until next time, please take care, look after yourselves and stay well.